You're watching Forsaken Joe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the story. Let's begin. Hi, welcome back to Forsaken Joe. I need to get this off my chest before I explode. So, picture this. It's late Friday night, and I'm lying awake in our empty bed, staring at the ceiling like it's going to give me answers. Marissa, my wife, is supposedly on some team-building trip with her colleagues. She left 3 days ago, and every time I text her, the replies feel off. Too quick, too polished, like someone rehearsed them for her. Then, last night, she sent me a photo of the group sitting around a campfire, smiling like a stock image. Something about it bothered me. I zoomed in on the reflection in her wine glass, and, no joke, it wasn't a campfire I saw. It looked like the chandelier of some hotel lobby. My stomach turned. Maybe I was imagining things, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. This morning, I did something I never thought I would. I packed an overnight bag, didn't tell a soul, and just drove. 3 hours non-stop, fueled by bad coffee and paranoia. The resort she mentioned? Yeah, it's real, but when I got there, it wasn't the bustling corporate event I expected. The parking lot had maybe 6 cars, and the lobby was eerily quiet. I asked about her at the front desk, and the receptionist gave me that frozen, polite smile, like I'd just walked into a secret I wasn't supposed to know. She hesitated before telling me her room number, and that pause alone nearly sent me spiraling. Walking down that hallway felt like moving through quicksand. At the end of the hall, I heard it, her laugh. But it was softer, almost flirtatious. It didn't sound like the laugh she gives me. That sound pulled me like a magnet. When I reached the door, I saw it was slightly ajar. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it would echo through the hallway. I nudged it open, just an inch, and what I saw inside made me forget how to breathe. If you've made it this far, buckle up, because this is where everything starts to unravel. When I pushed the door open, the scene inside felt like a movie where I wasn't supposed to be the audience. There was Marissa, standing near the window, her hair slightly messy, wearing a robe I didn't recognize. She was holding a glass of wine, but it wasn't the wine that caught my attention. It was the man sitting on the edge of the bed. He wasn't one of her colleagues, at least not in any sense I had been led to believe. He was leaning back, laughing in that relaxed way people do when they're comfortable. Too comfortable. I froze. My brain was screaming at me to either walk away or storm in, but I couldn't do either. I just stood there, hidden by the gap in the door, my breath caught in my throat like a weight I couldn't swallow. I was shaking, but it wasn't just anger. It was this horrible cocktail of betrayal and disbelief. I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. Marissa said something to him I couldn't fully hear, but I caught enough to make my blood run cold. Something about how no one would find out. No one? Was that supposed to include me, her husband? My chest was pounding, and I felt my legs weaken. Every part of me wanted to kick the door open, but I didn't. I backed away, heart hammering, and practically ran down the hallway like a coward. Yeah, I know, Lenny the coward, that's me. I ended up outside in the parking lot, sitting in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I must have sat there for 20 minutes replaying what I saw. It wasn't just some misunderstanding. This wasn't innocent. It wasn't team building. It was something darker, something I didn't want to admit but couldn't ignore. Then my phone buzzed, a text from Marissa. Having a late dinner with the team. Don't wait up. I stared at it, the words blurring as my vision swam with rage and confusion. She was lying to my face, even as I sat in the same parking lot as her hotel. I knew I couldn't just leave. I needed answers. And if I couldn't confront her yet, I'd find another way to uncover the truth. I wasn't leaving this place without knowing how deep this went. I couldn't just storm in like some hero in a movie. I mean, what would I even say? Hey honey, remember your husband, the guy you've been lying to? No, I wasn't ready for that. I needed to know everything before I confronted her. I needed proof, real proof, so that she couldn't spin it or make me feel like I was crazy. I sat there, engine off, watching the entrance of the hotel like some amateur detective. Every time someone walked through the lobby doors, I wondered if it was him, the man in the robe. Was he her boss? Some random guy? I felt this mix of anger and humiliation gnawing at me. I've always been the quiet one, the guy who apologizes even when it's not his fault. But this was different. It felt like my entire life had been flipped upside down in the span of a few seconds. So, I did something I'm not proud of. I went back inside, pretending I'd left my phone earlier, and managed to charm the receptionist into telling me when the dinner reservation for Marissa's team was scheduled. She said they had a table at the resort restaurant in an hour. That's when I got an idea. If she was lying about dinner, I'd know. If she showed up, maybe I was wrong. But if she didn't, well, then I'd have more than just a gut feeling. I found a spot in the corner of the lobby where I could see the restaurant entrance but stay out of sight. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears as I watched couples and groups walk past me, laughing and chatting like normal people. Every minute that passed felt like an eternity. I checked my phone. 30 minutes, then 45. No sign of Marissa, no sign of the guy. My stomach dropped. An hour later, I saw her, but she wasn't walking toward the restaurant. She was leaving, and she wasn't alone. It was him, the guy from the room. They were dressed up, like they were going somewhere private. She looked happy. Happier than I'd seen her with me in months. That was the moment it hit me like a punch to the chest. I wasn't imagining this. She wasn't just networking or bonding with coworkers. This was something far worse. I followed them. Yeah, I know it's pathetic, but I couldn't stop myself. They walked out to the parking lot, laughing like a couple on a date, and got into his car. I kept my distance, my hands shaking on the steering wheel as I decided to tail them. I had no idea where they were going, but I knew this was going to end with either me finding the truth or me completely losing my mind. If you've stuck with me this far, I promise you, things are only going to get stranger. When Marissa and that guy got into his car, I didn't think. I just started my engine and followed them out of the parking lot, my headlights off, my heart hammering in my throat like I'd just committed a crime. I've never followed anyone in my life. I'm the guy who gets nervous ordering takeout if they ask me too many questions. But that night, I was a different person. I felt like some ghost of myself was driving, silent and numb, but laser-focused. They drove down a winding road, away from the main resort area. It was dark, with only the occasional glow of a streetlight flashing across my windshield. I kept my distance, far enough so they wouldn't notice me, but close enough that I could still see their taillights. With every turn they took, my thoughts got darker. What if I saw something I couldn't unsee? What if I followed them, and they ended up somewhere intimate? I didn't even know if I could handle that. But I couldn't stop. After about 15 minutes, they pulled into a small, upscale-looking restaurant tucked away on a side street. It wasn't the kind of place you just stumble upon. It was one of those dimly lit, almost secret places with valet parking and candles glowing in every window. I parked a block away and walked, my legs shaking like I was about to face a firing squad. From the outside, I could see them through the window. Marissa was leaning across the table, smiling in a way that I hadn't seen in years. Her laugh, it was soft, playful, the kind of laugh that used to be just for me. Watching her like that with someone else, it felt like a blade twisting in my chest. I almost turned back then, but I stayed, hiding behind a tree like some pathetic cliché. I was trying to read his face, figure out who this guy even was. He looked mid-30s, sharp suit, clean cut, someone who seemed like he had it all together. He wasn't some random fling. He looked like the type of guy who knew exactly how to charm someone like Marissa. When their food came, I watched them toast with wine. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could read her body language, her hand brushing his, the way she tilted her head slightly as he talked. It was more than casual. I was losing my mind standing there, but a part of me needed to keep watching. I needed this pain burned into my brain so I'd finally stop doubting myself. Then something happened that made my blood run cold. She reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and started texting. A second later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Marissa. "Hey, just finished dinner with the team. I'm exhausted. Might turn in early. Love you." She was lying to me while sitting across from this guy. I stared at that text, my hands trembling, and realized I was officially living in some kind of nightmare. I didn't confront them right there. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid of what I'd say, or what I'd do. Instead, I waited. I watched them finish their meal, laughing, leaning closer, like I'd been erased from her life. And when they left, I followed them again, every muscle in my body on fire with anger and humiliation. What I saw next was the moment that broke me. The moment I realized this wasn't just dinner. They didn't head back to the resort. They drove farther out, into a part of town I didn't recognize. And when they finally stopped, it was in front of a quiet, expensive-looking house. She wasn't just sneaking off for a quick lie. She had a whole other world I didn't know about. I swear, if you think you know how this story goes, you don't. When I saw them park in front of that house, I froze. It wasn't some cheap motel or random rental. It was a clean, modern, ridiculously expensive-looking house with black iron gates and a driveway that screamed money. My first thought was that maybe it was an Airbnb or something for her team, but the more I looked, the more I knew that wasn't it. The lights were already on inside, and there were personal touches. A bike leaning against the garage, potted plants on the porch, things you don't see at a temporary place. I stayed back, my car parked 2 blocks away, just close enough to watch. My head was spinning with questions. Who was this guy? Was this his house? Did Marissa know him from work? Or had this been going on behind my back for months, maybe even years? I hated myself for just sitting there like some powerless bystander. But I also knew I wasn't ready to face them yet. I needed to see more, to understand how deep this lie went. After about 15 minutes, I saw movement near the front door. It was Marissa. She was standing there with him, laughing again, this time softer, almost tender. Then she stepped inside, and the door closed. I swear in that moment, my entire body felt like it was on fire. I couldn't think straight. My first instinct was to storm in and demand answers, but I knew that would end with me looking like the pathetic, crazy husband who drove hours just to confirm his worst nightmare. So instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I got out of my car and started walking toward the house. Every step felt heavier than the last. I didn't even have a plan. I just wanted to see, to hear something, anything. I crept along the side of the house, feeling like some criminal, praying the neighbors wouldn't see me. I stopped when I reached one of the side windows. The curtains were half drawn, and I could see them inside. He was pouring her another glass of wine, and she was looking around like she'd been there before, like she was comfortable. That stung more than anything. This wasn't some spontaneous mistake. She knew this place. She'd been here before. I pulled out my phone and started recording, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. I told myself I needed proof, but the truth is, I didn't even know what I'd do with it. I guess part of me wanted to have undeniable evidence so I wouldn't keep second-guessing myself when she looked me in the eye and lied. Then something I didn't expect happened. He walked over to a shelf, picked up a framed photo, and showed it to her. From where I was standing, I couldn't see the picture, but the way they both smiled, it wasn't just some fling. There was history here. And that's when it hit me like a freight train. This guy wasn't some stranger. He had a place in her life, maybe even before me. My chest felt tight, my breathing shallow. I stumbled back from the window, terrified that I'd make a sound and they'd catch me. I walked back to my car like I was on autopilot. I didn't drive away. I couldn't. I just sat there, staring at that house, knowing my wife was inside with a man who clearly meant something to her. My hands gripped the wheel as I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I wasn't going home tonight. I was going to find out who this guy was, no matter how ugly the truth turned out to be. By the time I sat in my car outside that house, I felt like I wasn't even in my own body anymore. It was like I was watching my life crumble from the outside. My wife was in there, drinking wine with a man who clearly wasn't just some random colleague, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been living in a story she wrote for me. A story where I was just the backup character. I couldn't just sit there, though. I needed to know who this guy was. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to get them by crying in my car. I started by doing something I didn't think I had the guts for. I waited until I was sure they were settled inside, lights dimmed, no sign of movement at the door. Then I walked down the block and knocked on a neighbor's door. My excuse? I told them I was meeting a friend and wasn't sure if I had the right house. A woman in her late 50s answered, friendly but cautious. And when I casually described the man I saw, her face lit up. Oh, that must be Daniel. He's been here for a couple of years. Works in finance, I think. Always has visitors. He's quite the charmer. The name hit me like a punch in the gut. Daniel. My wife had a coworker named Daniel. I remembered seeing his name pop up in her texts months ago, but she always brushed it off. Oh, it's just work stuff. Don't worry. My stomach turned as I thanked the neighbor and walked away, my mind spinning. This wasn't just some harmless friendship. It had been building under my nose for who knows how long. I went back to my car and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through Marissa's social media, through photos and tags, searching for any connection I'd missed. And there it was, a picture from 3 months ago, a group photo at some corporate event. In the corner, standing next to her with that same easy smile, was Daniel. He didn't look like just a coworker. He looked comfortable, like he'd already taken something from me and I didn't even notice. The worst part? The longer I stared at him, the more I realized that he wasn't just some stranger. I'd actually met him once, briefly, at her office Christmas party last year. I shook his hand. I even remember thinking he seemed like a decent guy. And now, here he was, with my wife, in his home, while she texted me lies about being tired from team meetings. I sat there for what felt like hours, trying to figure out what to do next. I didn't have a plan, just this burning need to do something, anything. Finally, I made a decision. I was going to wait. I didn't care if it took all night. I wanted to see how this ended, how late she stayed, whether she went back to the resort at all, or whether she'd stay the night in his house like our marriage meant nothing. When the front door finally opened, it was close to midnight. I hunched low in my seat, watching as they stepped out together. He had his hand on her back, guiding her like she belonged to him. They stood there for a moment, talking softly, then laughing about something I couldn't hear. And then, I saw it. She kissed him. Not some quick peck, not a polite goodbye. It was slow, deliberate, like something I hadn't felt from her in a long time. That moment shattered me. I felt my entire body shaking as I started my engine. I wanted to confront her right there, but instead, I followed them again, my thoughts spinning with one single goal. I wasn't going to let this end without her knowing I'd seen everything. By the time I followed them back to the resort, my mind wasn't just spinning. It felt like it had completely snapped. I was gripping the steering wheel so tightly my hands hurt. I'd just seen my wife kiss another man, like I didn't exist. And now I was driving behind them, headlights off, barely breathing, every nerve in my body screaming for me to do something. The rational part of me, the calm guy I used to be, was long gone. All that was left was this raw, gnawing fury, and a kind of hollow pain that made it hard to think straight. They pulled up to the resort entrance, and I parked a few rows back, watching like some ghost haunting the edges of their world. He walked her to the door, his hand lingering on hers like he'd done this 100 times before. She leaned in close, whispering something that made him laugh softly, and then she slipped inside the building like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't going home to a husband who'd just seen her with another man. I sat there, shaking, watching him walk back to his car with that smug smile that made me want to tear the steering wheel in half. I couldn't let it end like that. I wasn't going to drive home like some broken fool, pretending I didn't know the truth. I needed her to see me. I needed her to realize that I wasn't blind anymore. But when I stormed toward the lobby doors, something stopped me. Fear. Not fear of her, but fear of the words that would come out of my mouth. I had no plan, no script, just this seething rage that I knew would boil over the second I saw her face. So, I waited. I sat in the car, watching the lights of her room on the second floor. I saw shadows moving inside. For nearly half an hour, I stared at that window, my thoughts spiraling. What if I confronted her, and she didn't even care? What if she looked me in the eye and told me it was over? That fear paralyzed me in a way I can't even describe. It's one thing to suspect betrayal. It's another to stand there and hear it confirmed. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from her. Heading to bed. Long day. I'll call you tomorrow. Love you. My throat went dry reading those words. She had no idea I was parked right below her room, watching her silhouette as she pretended everything was normal. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to text back, I know where you are, I know what you're doing. But I didn't. Something in me told me that wasn't the moment yet. I needed to catch her off guard, the way she'd caught me off guard with this whole double life. That's when I came up with an idea I still can't believe I went through with. I decided I was going to confront her not tonight, but in the morning when she least expected it. I booked a room at the resort under a fake name. Yeah, I know, it sounds insane, but at that point, I didn't care. I was going to stay the night and be right here when she walked out of that room tomorrow morning, pretending like nothing was wrong. When I finally lay down in the cheap resort bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every laugh, every look, every kiss I saw between her and that man. I kept picturing all the nights I stayed late at work to provide for us while she was out building this secret life. The anger was boiling so hot, I didn't even notice the hours slip by. And just when I thought I couldn't sink any lower, something happened that made my blood run cold. At around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps outside my door. I peeked through the peephole and saw him. Daniel. Walking alone down the hallway, glancing around like he was looking for someone. I don't know why, but in that moment, I realized tomorrow might not just be about confronting her. It might be about confronting him too. This is the final part of my story, and trust me, It didn't end the way I thought it would. When I saw Daniel walking alone down the hallway at 3 a.m., I froze. My first instinct was to step out, to confront him right then and there, but something in me held back. He wasn't heading toward Marissa's room. Instead, he turned a corner and disappeared into a lounge area near the lobby. I decided to follow, my heart pounding like a drum. I found him sitting there, alone, drinking from a glass of water, his face looking tense, not smug like I imagined. I walked up, adrenaline rushing, and blurted, "We need to talk." He looked startled, but then something unexpected happened. He didn't act guilty. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he sighed and said, "You're Marissa's husband, aren't you?" That threw me off. I nodded, ready for a fight. But then he dropped a bomb I wasn't prepared for. He told me that Marissa wasn't having an affair, at least not the way I thought. According to Daniel, Marissa had been planning something for weeks. The team trip was partly true, but what I saw, those laughs, the house, the kiss, was all part of a secret surprise she was planning for me. The house wasn't his, it was her cousin's place, where she was setting up something for my upcoming birthday. He explained that the kiss I saw wasn't romantic. It was a playful dare from a group game earlier, something he said she didn't even want to do. He even offered to let me check his phone right there to prove there was nothing between them. I was stunned. My anger cracked into confusion, and then into something worse, shame. Had I really driven 3 hours, stalked my wife, and convinced myself of the worst, only to find out I was wrong? I didn't fully believe him at first, but the sincerity in his voice made me hesitate. He even told me, "Look, man, talk to her tomorrow. Don't let this eat you alive. She loves you. I can see it when she talks about you." The next morning, I did. I waited for her outside her room, and when she saw me, her face went pale with shock. But when I told her everything, the drive, the spying, the kiss, she didn't get angry. Instead, she hugged me. She explained the entire story, even showed me texts with her cousin and the event planner. I felt like the world's biggest fool, but at the same time, I felt this overwhelming relief wash over me. She wasn't leaving me. She wasn't betraying me. We talked for hours that day, more openly than we had in years. I told her how I felt invisible lately, how I worried we were drifting apart. She admitted she noticed and wanted to surprise me with something big to remind me how much I mean to her. That weekend, we laughed about my detective meltdown, and weirdly, it brought us closer than we've been in a long time. So yeah, maybe I went off the rails, but in the end, I got something better than just answers. I got my marriage back on track.